My name is Seth. Today we'll be examining a couple early 1600s English settlements, specifically Jamestown and Plymouth. Now these were two English settlements that were established for different reasons and different motivations. Before we begin looking at what exactly happened within the settlements and what determined their ultimate success or failure, we're going to look at the purpose of the settlement. Now in the instance of Jamestown was settled as more of an investment and a way for the crown to extend its influence into North America. It was done with religious justification. Whereas Plymouth, that was settled more for religious freedoms, people looking to establish a new home. So as one might imagine, the motivations of the early explorers that went on those embarkments were much different. Jamestown was looked at more of an investment opportunity, a place to find mineral resources, looking for gold, and trying to gain a trade status. As the attraction to grow wealth enormously brought settlers to Jamestown, many of these individuals weren't exactly skilled tradesmen. And in fact, as it would turn out, many were not motivated. They may not even lift their own hand to save a life. Whereas when you look at the Plymouth settlers, they were strongly motivated to succeed. They were family-centered. Actually, many of the studies that were done on the families of Plymouth showed that those who were in larger family units had a much higher rate of survival than those who were just individuals or hired hands. And that was within the Plymouth settlement. And if you extrapolate that to the Jamestown settlement, where many people did not carry a common cord or kinship to each other, there was very much less motivation to look out for each other, which ultimately affected the death and survival rates. The Jamestown settlement, when it nearly failed, was they were actually going through one of the worst droughts that they had in an extended period of time, and actually very similar to the drought that left Roanoke, a lost colony, completely gone. Specifically, upon arrival, it was in May and the snow melt was occurring and they tasted the water, it tasted sweet. The problem with that was it was a short period. Now this doesn't go into much detail on the account from Piercy because he likely did not want to admit that there was any problems in his decision making on location. But as the spring snow melt dried up, the estuary in where they lived actually became much more salty. Now the decision to build a fort upon early first arrival for Jamestown was, at the time, it seemed like the perfectly good decision, and in fact going back probably would do the same given the risks of the Indians massacring the colonists. However, when you look at what happened in Plymouth, their first instinct was to build dwellings so that they could live, and that was probably noticed by the Indians, which probably led to much greater relations between the Indians and the settlers. The settlers of the Plymouth, who ultimately became the Pilgrims, really did seem to be genuinely interested in cohabitating with the Indians or the locals and local native population. Whereas those of Jamestown gave the vibe of looking to exploit the local population. One of the key instances that we could draw upon was the drafting of the Constitution, if you will, between the local Wampanoag tribe and the Pilgrims. And it was here that very strict guidelines, fair guidelines were laid out that both parties were to abide by to ensure a productive relationship didn't fall apart like many of the other settlements where the Indians turned on the settlers. And we're often not given the reason why they turned, but one could assume that there was a souring of relationships through one way or the other. And it could be something as small as stealing some tools or striking another individual. I think it's the true motivation of the settlers and the intentions of the leaders that ultimately dictated the success or failure